Okay, good morning. My name is Beverly Harry. I work as a Native community organizer for Plant Action. So I've been working in this particular capacity for about a year, and I really, really love my job. I am Navajo. I come from Loop, Arizona, and I have been in different places in my life. I lived on the reservation and took a really interesting approach to my life on the reservation very early on, say right around 11 or 12 years of age. I was spending the time on the porch, listening to exit. I was herding sheep. I was spending the time out on the outdoors, and I spent so much of my early part of my life harvesting foods that my grandmother taught me to harvest. So I learned how to work really, really hard, and I spent time working with the land. I spent time touching the water and really understanding a little bit more about what the impacts were on the Little Colorado River. And when I look, when I think back to how I grew up, I think about that river that had these really, really, really large cottonwoods that you could just see for miles and miles and miles. So I'm 54 now, and I think to the age I was then, and that was probably at a time when there were some very, very light impacts to the landscapes. And what we've come to and the decisions that have been made up to this point have been really, really tough on the land. And I just went back to Loop, Arizona last week, and I looked down at the Little Colorado River, and I could only see very, very few cottonwoods within the beautiful landscape where I grew up. And most of those cottonwoods have been replaced by tamarisk and salt cedar that have just driven the immense beautiful landscapes that provided the light farming that was really, really, really critical to my upbringing and the farming that we did within the Little Colorado River. I can't imagine where all of these seeds have gone. When I was growing up, there was so many watermelon that were available within the garden. There were pink watermelons, there were white watermelons, there were yellow watermelons, there were red flesh watermelons, there were an amazing assortment of melons and an amazing amount of squash that I was able to harvest back in the time when I knew very, very little. But I learned to understand one thing, that we have to be open to observation. And that is our biggest tool, to be able to understand how we are making decisions for these landscapes, how we are making decisions for life. I am very happy to be here today. Mainly, you look at the project that USDA, UNR, and the Cooperative Extension have provided for us. This is native waters on arid lands. And it's a project that they're really working on developing a better understanding for researchers, for ranchers, for everybody that uses water at the time when climate change impacts are occurring. So how can we assist, and how can we provide the meaningful discussions and the feedback to the individuals that wrote this really, really important grant for Native people? And I think it's a start when we can really look at the type of determination that educators are looking at and what they really, really value as something that really needs to be looked at from the Native perspective. So I really appreciate the fact that even yesterday, at the very beginning, Daryl Vigil from the, what tribe was he from? He was from the Hickory Apache. He just made an amazing presentation about what we're not supposed to talk about, and what Native people have been silenced on for so many years, and that's spirituality and our connection with our earth, our land, and our inheritance. These are our indigenous lands that we really, really need to reclaim and rename, and we need to become more connected to these lands. So I'm going to start out at, thanking Lorraine, individuals from the Cooperative Extension for their work, and then also DRI. So I thank you for this incredible opportunity. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to go over the historical territories of Nevada. And if you had looked at the state, which now has boundaries, what was present before the actual state had boundaries. The boundaries were just amazing. They continued north and to the east, and then to the south. The northern Paiutes went all the way from Oregon down to Bishop. I think the Timbasha tribe were still considered northern Paiutes. And then there were the southern Paiutes that went all the way down to Kaibab, the Shivwits. There's just like an amazing mobilization that actually occurred with Native people. They traveled. They knew how to actually work with the very limited resources that they had. And if you always remember, if you look at Nevada and you cut Nevada in half, the western part of the state is territories of the Western Shoshone, and then the eastern part is Northern Paiute, and then right within the Lake Tahoe area is the Washoe. But tribes were mobile. They didn't just stay stationary and just they followed these mountains. They went over the Sierras. There were caves that were unveiled within just north of Pyramid Lake, and there were shells, like necklaces that had abalone on those beads, and the only way that they could acquire abalone was going over to the Pacific Ocean. And so those type of things really need to be acknowledged when nobody wants to believe that Native people were here. They want to extinguish exactly why we're here and what kind of philosophy we bring to these lands. So on the right side of the slide, you can see the 27 tribes that reside within Nevada. They are all outlined in yellow. And it's just been amazing to work with all of these tribes. So one of the things that I began uncovering is wherever there was points of contention with settlers or people that were colonizers, I guess you would say, when there was those contentious beginnings with Native people, it became evident that there were issues with water. The watershed, the beautiful watershed that the Native people belonged to, was the site of the contention. It was the site of racism. It was the site of discrimination, and that's where it began. And all of the Native people within the country were impacted by the same thing. That there were people that were really hungry for making wealth, acquiring wealth, and really pushing forward. And so, right in the Lovelock Paiute area, this was the issue. Wherever there was water and people wanted something that they wanted to put there, they were going to do anything that they could to make it happen, and ignoring the fact that there were impacts. So in early January, I began understanding a little bit more about the water grab issue in southern Nevada. And so since 1989, the Southern Nevada Water Authority was pretty determined to create a project to take water from the eastern part of Nevada and pump and pipe that water down to Las Vegas to increase the growth of that metropolitan city and continue to let the unsustainable monopoly occur at the expense of rural Nevada. So this was really heartbreaking to me. It was something that I knew a lot of people didn't know about, and this had been going on since 1989. So right now, I'm going to show you a video. And this is about, let's see,
Probably one of those.
oh, here it is. And it's about 2 minutes long.
Oh, that's a big question. I would say that, well, there's not enough water. Water defines the Great Basin. This whole region of the western U.S., 200,000 square miles, that all drains internally with no outlet to the sea. They're very high quality water, but just not very much because it's a desert.
Biggest concerns are that Nevada is the driest state in the country, and we're overdeveloping it. I mean, there is no unused water in the state.
There's not enough water coming from snow melt and storms anymore to replenish the aquifers because of drought, because of water conditions that have been used over the last couple centuries.
Water has always been a limiting resource, so you know, double, triple, quadruple, 10-fold, 20-fold, 50-fold the population, there isn't enough.
Start in eastern Nevada near the border of Elko County, and it would head south all the way through Lincoln County and down into Clark County and hook up with the water system in Las Vegas.
Where have these people been? The biggest issue in the entire West, the United States, is water, H2O. Life will not exist without it.
There used to be springs all the way around this valley at certain elevations, and most of them are dried up.
When Las Vegas filed on all unappropriated water in several counties, we thought that could be the end of the world for us.
The water table this time is in decline. And if they came, and it's a minuscule amount in comparison to what Southern Nevada Water Authority is proposing in this valley.
The way we think about it is if you took a football field, which is about an acre, and you filled it full of water to a foot deep, that would be 1 acre foot. And they want over 175,000 acre feet of water every year forever.
How big is the pipe? 8 feet. If we take 8 feet of water and pipe it at incredible velocities all the way to Las Vegas till the end of time, it's going to dry us all.
Basins like this that are interconnected with groundwater. The basins themselves are a bowl, and that's what the Great Basin is. But there are connections between these bowls underground that are very, very transmissible. A lot of groundwater can flow through them.
So if we take all the water that's left here and send it to Las Vegas, we're going to drop the aquifer down. It's already down quite a bit. But if we drop it down even a foot, Baker Ranch, for example, will be out of business, and most of the ranchers on up the valley will be.
They want to drill wells in this valley and several others and export the water about 300 miles to Las Vegas. Those wells would dry up a bunch of the springs that we depend on. It's obvious that this used to be a livestock watering spot. The water would just flow out of the well, fill the troughs and fill the reservoir. And I don't think there's been water flowing here for 25 years.
we're looking at a very dire situation. We've been in a drought for 8 to 10 years. It's not getting any better.
Most uses by nature don't have water rights. And thus, it's going to take water from the environment, or it's going to take water from ranchers and farmers. There is no unused water.
Bill Thompson's springs were dry. And they're raising alfalfa. They're putting the water right back on the same aquifer, but you put it in a pipeline, it ain't never coming back.
When you drain an area that big for that many years, eventually it's going to affect everything.
There will be a crisis. There is already a problem with stealing water from eastern Nevada and the uses up here is not the answer.
That's not the decision we want to make. There's got to be options, and there are. One thing that I've been pushing for the past few years has been desalination.
You know, that when they talk about desalting, they sometimes include a cost of a pipeline. But of course, that water, the logical thing to do with desalting water to be traded for someone closer to the ocean.
I mean, how many billions is it going to take to make that pipeline and all the peripheral stuff? I mean, that's going to be awfully expensive water, and probably desalination at least competes with it.
$15.5 million just to build a pipeline. That doesn't include the monitoring and mitigation costs, which are huge, because basically they're going to overpump a huge area of eastern Nevada.
You want to make Owens Valley look like a Sunday picnic? You're going to have Reno, Las Vegas, and a sand dune? Wow, this is really thinking down the road.
Destroying nature is not the, working with nature would be so much better.
In order to develop groundwater over here, you're taking water from somewhere or something else. Both the critters and people are using those.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on. If you want to look at the video, here is the information for that link, or you can go to the Great Basin Water Network to get to that link. There was only a few more minutes left of this video, but this provides the basis for what the issue is. And the problem is that they didn't really address the indigenous concerns and what are the indigenous rights and what do the indigenous people from the Nevada think? What do the leaders think? How can we assist? So those were the questions that weren't asked. So in my response to trying to develop a solution as for how we can bring attention to this issue, I really looked at the most phenomenal event just recently that occurred out at Standing Rock. And that, I think, was just so moving to me because everybody was concerned. Everybody felt what was happening. It was like Standing Rock was happening in their own home. And I think a lot of it was because indigenous people fully understood what pain they had suffered in the past, and that nobody brought light to that. Nobody brought the fact that Native people were still suffering, and that and Native people were still having to deal with that pain. Nobody was talking about it. So these were the things that had always been silenced for Native people. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about the fact that the lands have been stolen from you. And let's go ahead and go on like nothing ever happened. And let's move on, and let's program the society to ignore the fact that this actually happened. And let's continue to move on, and let's continue to lie about what we're doing with water now. And let's program people to ignore the fact that greed and the money is more important than what we value as life. And so that was the main foundation that I sought for this issue, and trying to find a way for indigenous people to reconnect with their lands through a new energy that had been developed, and that was having that spiritual connection. How can we get to these places, and how can we observe and see exactly what is going on? And the only way that we could do that is if we spent the time and we spent the energy going to these places and observing exactly what was going on. So I began looking for indigenous runners to run with prayer and song, and to try and understand further exactly what was in the way of Native people reconnecting to these lands, and how we could begin talking honestly about the fact that we are running out of water. And so I found that within this journey, not only for a lot of the indigenous runners and the people that were present, and trying to understand how we need to begin healing with water. And through that, I found that this spiritual journey was not only for the indigenous runners, it was for me as well. And one of the first places we ended up going on October 1st, I set up a tour at the Lehman Caves at Great Basin National Park. And we were introduced to a park ranger. I don't remember exactly what her name was. And she began talking down to us. Like, this is our park, and this is the way that we're doing things, and we were supposed to, continue on with that tour that we had paid for. So one of the questions that I thought was really, really important is, had the caves been used by Native people in the past? And she acknowledged that those caves have been used for a burial site. And that this is the place where the National Park Service is holding tours for their guests. And so I thought it was very, very appropriate for me to let her know that I was there to defend the indigenous runners and the people that I have brought. That it was in my best interest for us to feel comfortable in her tour, and that we would continue on if she acknowledged that this was a place for indigenous people. So she did, and we continued on with the tour, and it was mainly to show to the Native runners that these are points of contention. This is what's happening. You need to see exactly for yourself how there is disrespect for Native people. And we have to continue on and trying to pray a little bit further and get some direction for this issue. So that night, we had, after the tour, we went to our campsites. We built a fire, and we decided at that time we were going to work as teams. That we were going to sleep together, we were going to spend time together, we were going to pray together, we were going to sing together, but everybody had to participate, and that there was this underlying goal that we really, really needed to meet. And so there were some amazing runners that came from the San Felipe Pueblo Reservation. There were 6 individuals that came from the Navajo tribe. There was 2 individuals that came from the Bishop tribe, 1 from the Yarrington Paiute tribe, 1 from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe, and then some other indigenous runners that had no tribal ID. And so that was our group. And so the first night we created the fire, we lit the fire, and we sat there and we started with a prayer as to developing the mindset on how we were going to achieve this this goal. And the goal was that we're going to run October 2nd that we were going to run 100 miles, and that on day 2 we're going to meet the same goal, and day 3 we're going to meet the same goal. So in 3 days we're going to cover 300 miles down to the end of our trail. And so that's what we really needed. We needed to set in stone. We needed to decide that this is what we're going to do and whether we're going to be committed or not. So everybody around the campfire had talked. We also had like a little baby that went with us on the run, and I think the baby provided the foundation as what we really needed to do. That we were working, for the next generations. And so when Native people talk, hey, we're supposed to be planning for the next 7 generations. The 7 generations is equivalent to looking at those 7 generations separately. And each generation is supposed to be 30 years. So you do the math, 7 times 30, you come out with 210 years. That's how far we're supposed to be planning out. Within that time, if you look in the past, that's how much impact that we've had to this earth. And within less than 200 years, we're about to kill the earth. And so what room do we have to work with? And so the baby, everybody just started calling her baby. The baby became the general symbol for what we're supposed to be working for. And it led us to this goal as to what we were needing to achieve. So the campfire went out after everybody acknowledged, why they were there. Some of them had stepped up to the plate because of Standing Rock, and how beautiful that sacred fire was to bring home, and how the movement really made them work on a different direction with their life. And that is really amazing. That's really needed within our Native communities, because there are just so many places for individuals to fall. There's not enough help for them. There's not an acknowledgement of what problems have transpired in the past. So the next morning we woke up, packed up. Everybody was trying to mobilize. We're supposed to be over here at Swamp Cedars at 6:30 in the morning, and everybody mobilized. Everybody met their goal. We had already the drums had already begun pounding at 3:30 in the morning. At 4:30 in the morning, we still were just being really lazy. Some of us didn't want to get out of bed. Some of them people already had their stuff already packed and were already gathering firewood for the campfire. And so it was just like really cool how everybody got together. And then we went out to Swamp Cedars. So this was the start of the run, and I chose this spot because this was the site of one of the worst massacres for the Western Shoshone people. It was one that became a huge issue to the Western Shoshones in 1860 when the cavalry end up just mutilating so many Western Shoshone people. And so this is where I felt that healing could begin, that Native people really, really we needed to come together. We needed to pray for our people whose lives were buried in the sacred cedars. The sacred cedars is actually Rocky Mountain juniper, and the Rocky Mountain juniper have these roots that grow really, really, really shallow. So any water that is pumped out of there, these are going to be, these will probably die almost immediately after that pumping occurs. But also, this horrific event took place back in 1860, and this is the site that is privately owned and also managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. But if you can see here in this slide, you have you know, solar energy, not solar energy, green energy that is occurring. And it's just like this is a burial ground. And this is what we're allowed to happen. These are the impacts to Native communities, to tribes. I mean, we don't know any respect. We don't understand. We think that our values are more important than anybody else's. This was what we were up against immediately within less than 12 to 14 hours. So sitting by the campfire brought a lot of you know, thoughts about how individuals wanted to heal, how they talked about water so much, about its healing, its impact in their life, and how they wanted to work to protect it. The morning of the run, we had the Go Shoot tribal leader, Rupert Steele, come out, and he ended up saying a prayer, and he sang a song to all of the, to everybody. Right at the area where we ran out, this road that's right here is the gate for the Sacred Cedars. And so on that morning, before the runners took off, I opened the gate to what it seemed like it was like all of the spirits were just all kept in there, and nothing could be released. So I opened the gate as the runners took off, as the songs were being sung. And I thought, you know, if the spirits go out, you know, we want them to enjoy that freedom, that we were here to be with them. And so we spent some time just talking about how we were going to achieve this, and then we took a picture and we began running down the road. And this is Christian or Dustin. So if we didn't have that opportunity, if Dustin didn't have the opportunity to run in that spot, he would never really understand that particular grade that he had to run up. He would never be able to remember the temperature in the air that day, the clouds in the sky, and how the impacts of Hurricane Rosa were coming up from the south. And so having the rabbit brush present at that time to say, hey, to the Native people, your pine nuts are ready. They're in full bloom. Come out to the mountains. We need you. We need you to help. And we want to give you life. We want to provide for you. So that was what the rabbit brush was speaking to Native people. And so these things are really, really critical. If you haven't been been able to really understand what Native people think, the beauty is there. I mean, someone had said to me at one point at one of our events, we used to be beautiful people, and it was said by Toby Stone. We used to be beautiful people. And then he corrected himself and he said, we are beautiful people. We are beautiful people. And we have to really, really believe that. We are beautiful people. And so it really leads us to thinking about, how we really need to work together. I think the first rules of the run was, drink enough water, and then the second rule was participate. So you couldn't just say, okay, I'm going to be the driver. I mean, I thought I was just going to be the driver, and here I think I ended up running like about 7 or 8 miles, and soon I was there, packing the staff, and there was a lot of things that I can't talk about as far as the how the traditional leaders were taking care of us every day, the things that were said, the prayers that were sung. I didn't include any of those because I think those were to the success of the event. After we ran for say the first 4 hours, and we're doing leapfrogs and saying, okay, well, this truck over here has 5 people. We're going to go ahead and make sure that they do 30 miles. So how do you guys want to split up those 6 miles apiece, and how are you going to achieve that? And so you had to develop a goal within your vehicle on how you were going to do it. And the same thing with table number 2. If they had a van, then how they were going to achieve it. So you got the first 30 miles, you got the second 30 miles, and then you got the third 30 miles, and that's how we achieved the 90 miles. And we were leapfrogging. So the last 10 miles, then we had to say, hey, who's up for the last 10 miles, and we were able to do it. We had just an amazing group of individuals that were out just saying, I'm tired, but I'm willing to do it. And so we rested in the middle of nowhere, and people were, exhausted, and we're just. I think they were just waiting for me to cook. It's just like, my name was Beverly, and then soon they started calling me Auntie, and so I felt like after a while I became their mother. And I just felt like I needed to feed them, I needed to take care of them. And so the relays that were being done, we had sage that were picked from the Western Shoshone lands, and then also working to provide other things that we thought were important to the staff. And so we just spent as much time as we could really, really enforcing what the runners were doing, giving them high fives, just really, really backing them, trying to keep them moving so they wouldn't stop. And every morning we began with prayer. We talked about the impacts from the day before, and then we also talked about our unity and how those efforts were going to be done, how we really needed to be committed to one another. And so Baby was there, and we told everybody that it was fine to resist, that it's okay, that it's okay to speak out, and it's okay to say, hey, you know, these are stolen lands, and these are these areas of Cathedral Gorge. They have you know, petroglyphs in them. You know, you go to Zion National Park, there's petroglyphs. I mean, it's just, you know, all over the place. And so we had Dustin Martin, who is from the Wings of America, step up to the top as being the leader for the runners. He talked like you wouldn't believe, a voice of wisdom, who brought attention to the group about what we really needed to do. And nobody said within the time we're meeting that this person is this way, you're that way, she's this way, I'm that way. Nobody broke each other down. Everybody was unified because we have a common purpose. That common purpose was protecting water and developing this awareness campaign. And so if once you develop a common purpose in letting everybody know that, hey, you know, I think we can work together, you have to make sure that you can, that common purpose is as important to you as it is for the next person. And so we had the Western Shoshone traditional leader with us over at Coyote Springs. And Coyote Springs was the area that you had seen in the Great Basin Water is Life video. And that particular area is being used as a golf course and a resort out in the middle of nowhere for people that want to go play golf. And it's just like, so these are a lot of the impacts. And so as we stated to a lot of the runners, it's okay to resist, you know, and so it was great to be able to work with runners who participated that really understood the movement that we were involved with, and to also heal with medicine, to learn how to use medicine for our benefit. And so when we had gotten down to Las Vegas, we held the event in conjunction with the UNLV powwow, and we went to one of the highest parking garages and took the staff over there with the eagle feather and made it known that this was what we're fighting against, and it's a really huge fight. Do you think we'll win? I don't know. We could if I think what will happen, if anything, is that the planet will win. That we could likely run out of water, and then we lose. But one of the things that we did over at the UNLV powwow, which we held in conjunction with the event, is we presented the mayor with the issue, the mayor of Las Vegas with the issue, and asked her to respond. And so how about that? You know, it was like really amazing challenge. And this was a plan. This isn't something that I hadn't even known about. I didn't know that Carolyn Goodman was going to be at that powwow, but we addressed the issue with her. And she left an opening for Indigenous communities to begin talking. So that was something I think that we had achieved with our project. Within the event, which lasted for 4 days, there were 30,000 hits on Facebook and 216 shares with Facebook. And I don't know how to interpret that because I don't have Facebook. But from what I understood, it was huge for this event, and that I think because we're at a time where we need to be talking about water issues, we need to be talking about water protection. It's critical at this time. So one of the things that I want to share with you is within our goal, we were only going to stop at Overton and then call it quits after that. But we pushed a little bit further. There were additional 24 miles that were added. The Wings of America felt that it was important for us to get to the Colorado River and to be able to touch Lake Mead and pray over there. So there we go again, you know. We're carrying our staff and pushing a little bit harder to meet the next destination, and everybody was tired. But when we got there and we were able to touch the water, it meant a whole lot to all of us. Because at that time I had already broken down, and I was just like just bawling because, you know, of this achievement, but also to realize that I really understand how precious water is, and so I was, you know, just bawling, and then I put my hand in the water, and then the water just told me, don't cry. And it just, it just told me it's okay. Everything is okay, and you're going to be soothed. And as quickly as the tears came to me, they left. And then I was okay. And I felt like, hey, the amazing part of water is its healing properties and how it can make you feel so good about the wealth of your spirit. So that's what I found, and my journey to really appreciating what water can do for Native people. So I want to thank, well, first of all, one of the things that I really need to say is that in my observation, everything that I saw on the land, on the run, within the caves, everything that I may have shared to you, those observations are that we are just putting too much pressure on Mother Earth. And we are beginning to say that we are so important that our needs are more important than our survival. And that we really need to work with less. Because what is happening when, if we just say, okay, we would like to protect water, and we look at the landscapes, and we look at all of the agricultural lands, and we look at all of the cows there, and there's things that you don't see. You don't see the elk in the mountain, you don't see the deer in the mountain, but something is taking the water from the elk and the deer. And that we have become so domesticated, our livestock have become so domesticated, and you can look and you can observe for yourself and take those clues on how we're using water. We've opened up groundwater. This is ancient water. This is ancient water that indigenous people had prayed for, that sunk into the ground when the prayers were prayed. And then when things begin to change and you see a change within society telling Native people to be silent, don't pray, don't sing to those mountains, don't do anything to benefit your spirituality and the way that you feel is important, that's the beginning of the end, because that is the spirit. That is the spirit that we're hungry for. That is the spirit of the world and the way that we want to work toward the rest of our lives. I want to be happy. I want to be happy, and I want to be content. And if we can just say to the mining industry that, hey, you know, gold is not going to be important to me, and that I will not allow my family to buy any gold from you, and I'm not going to allow water to be used in that way, that we can begin a new trend in the way that we're addressing water, that we can allow sustainable farming to occur. And these are the projects that are very useful for UNR, the Cooperative Extension, DRI. These are the things that are really, really meaningful, is how do we change our way of operation, and how are we programmed to think that we are just so important that we are not allowed to think about the children that are coming up and how we're going to address those. But we end up doing the same thing. We end up going home and we're not changing. I left the hotel room this morning, and I just grabbed my cell phone, and then I walked away, and then the light in the middle of the double beds was still on. And I took like about 4 steps, and then I thought, you know what, you are really, really lazy. I told that to myself, that you are really lazy. You really need to go back and take care of this. And I did. I turned around and I made a decision that I was not just going to be lazy. I'm going to do things, and I'm going to try a little bit harder to take care of these issues within myself. And I don't want to be colonized. I don't want to be a colonizer. I don't want to think that way. And so it's been a real long, it's been a long trek for me, and it's one that I'm willing to share with you. And I know that there are new beginnings that could occur, but we all have to say, hey, you know, there's a common purpose. It's not him or her or those guys or them guys, you know, it's everybody that really needs to take heed and understanding that we are up against our survival and our children's survival, and we really need to work on sustainable measures to continue on working on this issue of protecting water. So the special thanks go to Wings of America, the Great Basin Water Network, the Ely Tribe, the Goshen Tribe, the Las Vegas Pike Tribe, the Western Shoshone Defense Council, Johnny Bob, who is the traditional leader, Plant Action, the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Bishop Tribe, Urinton Tribe, the San Felipe Tribe, and the Navajo Tribe. The other tribe that I didn't acknowledge was the Fallon Paiute Shoshone Tribe, and that all of those individuals I give definite praise to for supporting all of our runners and adding light to the issue of Indigenous people in this fight to protect their water and to protect their lands that you are all living on. Thank you.
So we had a little trouble with the internet, as people figured out, but we do have a few questions that came up on Kelsey. That came up on Slido, so it's back up. So if you want to add questions, please go ahead. We'll just take a few questions. Beverly, that's lovely. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you sharing your story. It was very important for us. A couple of years ago, we had the chairman from the Cheyenne River Tribe talking about the Dakota Pipeline, and we've heard a lot of stories, similar but different, and we really appreciate you sharing yours. So there are a few questions up there, so if you're willing to take those.
You know, in the introductions, I try not to talk about myself too much because I think it's the Native people that really need to bring their word out and their identity and their claiming of the lands that we're in. So that was the reason why I put out that first map of Western Shoshone and the Northern Paiute territories. But Beverly Harry and Ashia Tachitni Nuazi Ashen Shlin Tachitni Bashichin Ado Nake Dina Edashiche Honarapi Tashimala Ekut Asan Shlin. So my name is Beverly Harry. I am from the Red Bottom clan. I am born for the Red Forehead clan. My maternal grandfather is the Mexican clan, and my paternal grandfather is from the One Who Walks Around clan. And that is how I identify myself as a woman. So the next question is, will this run occur annually? I think we had already gotten some people interested in doing this run. I talked to Daryl, was it Daryl Vigil? Yesterday, and I said, hey, can you be a runner? And he said, yeah, I'll be a runner. Yeah, he looked like a runner, and he was really enthused. So I think as time goes on, I mean, if there's more people that want to get involved, I know that Jolie Varela wants to do a run from Mona Lake all the way down to Los Angeles. So if you are interested in that, that'd be something really, really dynamic, because they've been taking water from Mona Lake and the Sierras, the Bishop area for years to send down to Los Angeles. And have you connected with Sean Martin, a Navajo runner and creator of Canyon Deshay Marathon? He's in a new documentary called 3100 Run. And yes, I have. Actually, Sean was the one that was running that grade in motion, and he was the main individuals who was organizing all of the runners while we were out there. How can we help get your story out? I think I think it's really important for tribes to begin thinking together and to say, how can we develop leadership together, and how can we develop unity together? That there are so many issues that are in everybody else's backyard. We have the Fallon Naval expansion. We have the Nellis Air Force expansion. We have all of these military operations that are getting larger. We're becoming more militarized within the state of Nevada. There's issues that are affecting water. We really need to unite, and if there's anything that you tribal members can do is talk to their council. And I know that a lot of the work falls on the chairman, but I think it's important for you to talk to them about, really becoming the leadership, really becoming a leader that everybody can work with. So I think just becoming stronger in unity and leadership is really important. What was the total number of runners that participated altogether? If we count me, that was probably about 17. And when is the next run, and how can we sign up or be a part of this? I think it may be something that we might have on an annual basis. For each of the runners, I end up raising $750. And that was to bring attention to the fact that a lot of the Native people are asked to do things. They're asked to participate, and then it's the family, it's the mother and the father that have to come up with the money to fund particular athlete or someone to go to that particular place. And so this way, we just paid out the $750 to each of the runners after they got done. But there was only 10 of them that was given out. And so it's a lot of money to raise, but it's also a good a standard to put into place is, valuing our, not taking less. There's athletes that get paid a whole lot for doing things, so why can't we pay Native runners to be a part of something that is really, really big? And they took time out of their jobs, they took time out of their their classes to join us. So it was really, really important. So thank you so much.